and there's not enough prosecutors. So in the NPA, there's quite a lot of progression options. And then obviously when you are permanent, you get an increase. I think now I am firmly entrenched in criminal law. A lot of applications fall by the wayside only on that form. There's a recruitment or an internship program called Aspirant Prosecutor Program.
Thank you. Welcome to the Financial Metaverse. Today we are sitting with the man of the law who's going to tell us about what it takes to start a profession in the law, specifically working as a prosecutor. Without further ado, just introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what exactly you do for a living.
Thanks for having me on Financial Metaverse. My name is Simpiwe Mechile. I am a prosecutor at the National Prosecuting Authority. I have an LLB, which is the minimum requirement to enter the law profession. I've done articles. I have now completed a master's subsequent to joining the NPA, but my job is entirely criminal law.
For those who don't know and who have an interest in your profession as prosecutor, just tell us exactly what is a prosecutor and what is the job of a prosecutor.
Thanks. So the job of a prosecutor is basically to fulfill the mandate of the NPA, which is to ensure safety and security of the community. Obviously, the police will do crime prevention and make arrests, and it is up to the NPA or prosecutors to then take up the dockets and pursue them in criminal proceedings in court. That is the essence of it. And so the job will entail screening the docket from the police to see if there's a case and to make a decision on the docket. And there's many decisions that one can make, including to enroll the case in the court roll or not to enroll, what charges to prefer against the accused, whether or not to oppose bail, whether or not to divert the matter. Diversion is part of alternative dispute resolution, whereby some cases are really petty and it is really not in the interest of justice or the community to pursue them in the ordinary criminal trial.
Okay.
And so sometimes you will divert those people to a life skills program and rather pursue rehabilitation.
Yeah.
That will particularly be cases of someone, perhaps a university student that stole a chocolate and is likely to be a lawyer in the future. Instead of ruining that future, we give them a second chance.
Yeah.
And so it depends. Obviously, eventually you will then go to court to prosecute the case.
Right. Wow, that sounds quite intense, but a very crucial role, I mean, in the context of what you do for the country.
Yes.
So basically the police, they arrest the criminals and you make sure they get and stay behind bars.
Yeah, so the police will do the arrests and the detectives unit will do the investigation. There's something called prosecutor-led investigations, which has been introduced not too long ago, whereby the detective does the investigation, but the prosecutor tells him what to do.
Okay.
And it's really aimed at ensuring a successful prosecution, because it will not help where a detective says, I have a solid case, and the prosecutor doesn't think so.
Yeah.
And so we work hand in hand with SAPs and other stakeholders to ensure that the docket is ready for trial, and once it's enrolled, it will lead to a conviction.
Wow. Interesting. Tell us a little bit about your background. Have you always been interested in this profession? Have you always wanted to be a lawyer? Do you come from a family of lawyers? I know. What was your childhood growing up and what led you to this path?
Okay, my childhood was interesting in that I never wanted to be anything as a child. The only dream I had was to be educated when I was younger, around 10 years old. I never actually wanted a particular profession or the other. I just wanted education and just to be aware and know things. And that was, So when I was younger, I was also interested in watching news at a very young age. I was not interested so much with cartoons. And so I got to appreciate certain people like the former president Thabo Mbeki. He was then the president at the time I was younger. And I learned that he's educated, he has economics degree, and I had thought that a state president knows everything. Because there's various state departments, Department of Health, Department of Energy, and I thought he must be a genius to run everything.
Sure.
So I did not want to be a president, but I wanted to at least have that level of education. And obviously I've realized that was not a correct observation. But I wanted to pursue education, and I ended up in law. So when I finished matric, I did physics and maths, and where I come from, physics goes to engineering, commerce goes to accounting. And I was fairly okay, I was good. I had a bursary at ESCOM at some point. But I did not feel right with me. It was good by the books. I did not want to do that type of a job. And so I considered, what type of job do I want to do on a daily? And I didn't want a blue-collar job, even one of engineering. I wanted a white-collar job. So that I wouldn't have to work so hard. I thought that I'll work 9 to 5.
Right.
And again, little did I know that weekends are included, public holidays, and after hours.
Right.
So when I made a short list, business administration law was one of those things that I wanted to do within my interests. I got accepted for law, and I'm happy to have done it.
No, awesome. Now tell us about your journey that led you now to this profession of being a prosecutor. Where did it start? You mentioned you got an LLB, and subsequent to that you got the master's, but just tell us, someone who's interested in this profession, what paths do they need to follow? Okay,
so maybe I should answer the last question first. So the NPA advertises every year. There's a recruitment or an internship program called Aspirant Prosecutor Program. It's a year program whereby they recruit LLB graduates and train them within the NPA to become prosecutors, after which you will be appointed. I must qualify that because I say every year, but it's not exactly every year, because some years there's no budget, some years there's a bigger budget, and so it depends. Some years it's suspended, some years they hire more. So they will advertise on their website and social media platforms. You must fill in the Z83 form, which is the standard form for government positions. It must be filled by hand, completely everywhere. It's a crucial form. It's a 2-pager, but it's so significant in that a lot of applications fall by the wayside only on that form.
Wow.
Because it is quite technical. It's a form that you have to tick boxes and put in your personal details, but there's a particular way they want it. And so if they require your ID number, and then the next question wants your passport number, you can't just skip it. You have to write not applicable or your passport number. So if it says, do you have a criminal conviction, yes or no, and then you say no, the next question will say, for example, explain. Then you can't, because you've ticked no, then you don't have, you must explain, I do not have criminal convictions. So it's important to get it right, because it gets you to the next phase, whereby you are shortlisted to write an exam. They will send you a study guide which has material of criminal law, criminal procedure law of evidence, sentencing law. It's about 460 pages now. It's a 3-hour exam. You have to write and pass that exam. The passing mark is 50%. It's not that hectic.
It's not 30.
Yes. No, it's not 30. But the competition is stiff. Everyone wants to join. There's a lot of LLB graduates. And so although the passing mark is 50, when they can only take 80 people nationally, the bar will rise to 80, 90, because then they must shortlist and cut off some people. So it's important to prepare well for that exam. If you succeed, you will be called for an interview in front of a panel of many people. And Then they will determine your suitability and ask questions, ordinary interview, but also practical legal questions
Sure.
to assess your thinking and logic. And if you succeed, you will be invited to start the program. So the program, you will have done a couple of months classes
Yeah.
and practical work training the rest of the year. There's assessments throughout the year, written, and at the end of the year, practical assessment, whereby assessors will sit in your court and
Yeah.
watch you perform. They will watch your work, how you relate, how you prepare your dockets, how you
Yeah.
draft charges, how you do bail applications, how you withdraw charges, how you do guilty pleas, how you conduct trials, and all those things, including the technicalities of a trial. Do you raise objections? Do you see when there's points to object? Do you cross-examine correctly? They have clipboards, they enter that information, which will be submitted to National, and when you are approved, you will be given a certificate. They say they reserve the right to hire. In practice, they've hired everybody who has trained.
Sure.
And so that is how you become a prosecutor. But
Wow.
just to answer the first question about my journey, so I studied law at NMU. I did not know much about prosecution at the time. I did articles at a firm here in PE for 2 years, and close to the end of my articles, I got the post at NPA, because towards the end of articles, you start looking. At the time I was applying, I was not going to be retained at the firm. But later on in the year, I was given an offer, but I had another offer at NPA, and I chose to pursue the NPA.
What was your reasoning for not accepting the other offer?
Doing articles, I had come to a realization that civil law or civil practice is not really where my interests lie.
Okay.
And so I had done a bit of litigation work in labor matters and a little bit of criminal. So I had an exposure in those areas. So I had an interest in them, but they were not a big practice in the firm in which I was. It was mostly civil and estates. And I had wanted to do more litigation. And so I then chose to go to the NPA, and immediately I joined the NPA. I began a master's in labor law because I was still pursuing both interests.
Yeah.
And I think now I am firmly entrenched in criminal law.
There's no turning back.
No, there's no turning back, but we can never say never.
Sure.
So I'm always open to, I'm not fixed on anything. And so when life calls elsewhere, I am ready, but I am quite content and I'm satisfied with where I am for the foreseeable future.
Awesome. From what you've explained about what it takes to get into the NPA, I have a more profound respect for you and for these state prosecutors, because sometimes we look at them and we're not sure whether they are very competent or not.
Yeah. No, it's a grueling assessment and training is quite demanding because from the aspirant prosecutor level, you already run your own courts. Obviously, there's always a senior prosecutor to go to for questions, to assist, but you learn and you work hard all day, every day. So many cases on the court roll.
Yeah.
And so you appreciate hard work at a very early stage. Sure. Of course, you're in public service, you work with people, and sometimes it's not glamorous to be in public service,
right,
as opposed to corporate practice. But it is demanding, and people who do it because they have a passion, they love it, they love to serve the people. And I mean, the money is there because you pay the bills, but if someone was practicing in public service for money, they would probably have a lot more options
Sure.
in private practice than in public, and so of course we want money, but there's a lot that has to do with serving the public, which I enjoy. By
Sure.
the way, I enjoy that the NPA is a public entity.
Right.
I enjoy that it's not Zola's prosecutions.
Sure.
And I must dance to Zola's mood
Sure.
from day to day. It's
Sure.
so I enjoy that it's a constitutionally established organization, practicing in terms of legislation. There's a little bit, as a minimum impact that, or let me put it this way, there's a little bit of influence one person can have on your career. It is limited in such a way that it is unlikely to really ruin your career or make you quit, because you operate in a broader organization. They answer to someone, the next person answers to the next person.
Yeah.
So everybody's just doing their job. It's nobody's business. It's nobody's inheritance.
Yeah.
We're joined by a desire to serve, and so it's easy to work harmoniously together in that manner.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad you introduced the subject of money, because our viewers are interested. When you are starting out as a prosecutor, how much are you likely to earn, or what can you expect to earn?
So for an aspirant prosecutor program, I think it's 18,000 if I'm not mistaken. I have not reviewed, but I think it's along those lines, or 20 something, around the 20,000 mark.
Okay.
And maybe you take 18,000 home. I don't recall if it was 18 net, 18 gross.
Okay.
And then obviously when you are permanent, you will get an increase, but also being permanent comes deductions. So you don't necessarily become richer when you are permanent, but maybe your employment becomes more stable, because you do get an increment plus benefits. But pension will take a lot of money. SARS will take a lot of it. Medical aid will take a lot of it. So maybe you might get housing if you qualify, but it won't bring you back to where you would like to be.
Sure. Thank you for answering that. And what is the career progression of a prosecutor? Once you become a prosecutor, what is now the mobility upwards from there?
So in the NPA, there's quite a lot of progression options. So from a district court prosecutor, which is the base position after aspirant, you could become a district court control prosecutor, which is a supervisory role in the district court, or you could become a regional court prosecutor, which is in the same scale as the district court control prosecutor, or a regional court control prosecutor, which is also a supervisory role in the regional court prosecutors level. You could become a state advocate. You could become a senior public prosecutor, a senior state advocate, chief prosecutor, deputy director. This obviously goes up all the way to national directorship. But there's a lot of streams that one could take within the NPA.
And all of that is based on experience, obviously, and maybe competency and so on.
Yes. There's a general standard to say to become a regional court prosecutor, you must have 4 years experience. To become a state advocate, maybe 5 years, or a senior prosecutor, 8 years. But then again, in my view, that is rarely the case. Because again, how many prosecutors are in the country? And when the NPA advertises, it's not an internal post, it's a national post. Everyone applies in private practice as well. So there's a lot of interest in the post NPA advertises, such that the bare minimum requirements do not become the determining criteria. So the more people apply, then you will increase the selection criteria. So you might find that although you have 4 years, you are not shortlisted, because obviously there's people with 10 years
Yeah,
also vying
yeah,
for the same role,
yeah.
and so they were spoiled for choice. So, but those options are there. It's relevant to distinguish yourself
Yeah.
in practice, because a lot of the people that will sit on the panel are seniors within the NPA,
Sure.
and it helps to be known and distinguished for something. In a situation where I am 5 years in the NPA and you are 10 years, but my work is known that
Yeah.
it is sharper than a 10-year-old
Yeah.
person in the NPA, it might give me an advantage to be preferred um, uh, ahead of perhaps someone who has more years.
Yeah.
So it helps to learn as much as you can, to try to expose yourself to different things to build your CV,
Yeah.
because the options are there, but you need to really push yourself to secure the spots
Sure.
that are available.
I hear you. So what would you say is the most interesting part about being a prosecutor? What do you enjoy most about the role?
So you have to enjoy litigation. In the legal profession, there's too many things one can do with an LLB. One can be a conveyancer and never see court in their life, or a compliance officer, risk manager, those type of careers. Or you could pursue litigation, whether as an advocate or in the prosecution or as an attorney. You have to like litigation, because the work of prosecutors every day, all day, it's litigation. Other work is incidental to your litigation. Your rating is incidental to so your preparation, anything else that you do, your admin work starts, the incidental, but you have to love litigation. But you must also love public service. You work with people, and in most cases they have nothing to offer. You can't help them hoping that you are establishing a connection that will help you in the future.
Right.
Sometimes there's nothing for you to get. But you have to have that passion and that love to serve them, the public, because a prosecutor not only represents the victim,
Right.
you represent the broader state, the community, and the public interest. And so you must have an interest as to what is just and what is in the interest of justice. So that is fulfilling to me. I'm happy when I helped someone. And as it happens in court, someone will ask a prosecutor for directions. They will ask for directions to the bathroom and other questions they might have, a case that they have somewhere else. Because you're a public servant, they identify you as someone who should be able to assist and will assist. And it is the role of the prosecutor to assist, because we're in the service of the public. So that is the most fulfilling thing for me, to help someone in their case, to help the public when they come to me, and just to make sure that justice is done, which not always means that you win the case. Because sometimes people think that you must win by hook or crook. It is unethical for a prosecutor to do that. You could be fired for pursuing a conviction by all means. And so you, as a prosecutor, you have a duty to the public, you have a duty to the court. So when the truth is known to you, even if it's unfavorable to your case, you must bring it to the attention of the court, even if it favors the accused. In that way, you really are serving a higher goal than an individual complainant or client. You are really pursuing the public interest and justice, really.
Wow, thank you for explaining that so well. Would you say that there is a demand for prosecutors in this country, or it's kind of a profession that is sort of oversubscribed? There's too many job seekers in the market.
So there's a demand for prosecutors. There's a lot of it. I'm not sure, the way the demand is so huge, I'm not sure if it will come to an end. Perhaps in South Africa, when we've reached a state of peace and prosperity, and there's no GPV, and there's no one looking at the neighbor's window, maybe we'll need less prosecutors. But as things are, there's a lot of crime in the country. There's a lot of poverty and unemployment, and those who've done sociology will make a relationship or connect the dots that those who don't have will go to those who have and rob or steal. That is not justifying it, because a lot of it is out of habit, a lot of it is out of a desire for drugs, a lot of it is out of opportunism. But so long as the human element, which has a tendency to do wrong, is there, we will need more prosecutors in order to establish security within the communities.
Yeah.
As it is now, there's a lot more work to be done, and there's not enough prosecutors. And so I think there's always a need for prosecutors, and at this stage I don't see how we can have enough. For example, where I work, I am stationed at the St. Albans Court, which is situated within the St. Albans prison. That court services the areas beyond Kapika, Westering, Keiga, Greenbushes. There's a lot of cases that go to that court. Right now, there's about 150 cases on the roll. I'm the only person there.
Wow.
And so which tells you the magnitude of the work. In other courts as well, new law courts, you can go anywhere in the country. There's more dockets than there are manpower.
Wow.
So I would encourage people who have an interest to pursue a career in prosecution, because once you are in, it's easy to stay, and there's growth prospects. That, I mean, really you could stay until retirement from when you leave school, because there are so many options. I must just mention quickly that within the NPA, it's not the prosecution is the core function of the NPA, but there's other divisions such as the asset forfeiture unit, which works hand in hand with the prosecution. And so whereby someone could also venture into that area of practice, which is more civil in nature, and practices in the High Court. The asset forfeiture unit deals with proceeds of crime, and they seek to take away the benefit or the profit out of crime. Otherwise, someone might take a chance and think that if they rob R1 million in the bank, they might do 5 years and come back to get out from the stash. But the asset forfeiture unit is there to make sure that if you've got a corrupt tender, the house which you bought, the car which you bought with that money, your investments, your accounts are frozen, attached, and recovered, so that there's not incentive to crime. And there's other divisions such as the legal affairs divisions. They also deal with civil work. When the NPA is being sued or the prosecutor is being sued for whatever reason, then they will attend to the lawsuits.
Wow. What would you say is the least favorable thing about the work of a prosecutor?
I think it depends from one person to another. For me, I don't like admin so much, but I'm not sure if there's a job which has no admin at all. You take it with the many good things that come with it. I imagine for some people do not. So for an example, the court I mentioned at St. Albans, it's in the heart of maximum section, and the inmates in orange overalls. Some people don't want to come near that environment, which may be a negative point for them. It's not so much for me because I am passionate about criminal law, about crime, about the criminal, about society. I talk to them, I engage with them, and I enjoy to learn about their background, what led them to it, and their motivations.
Right.
And a lot of the times you find that they are very nice people.
Sure, sure.
Because sometimes there's a myth that hey, these guys, maybe they'll come to your house.
Sure.
And well, it's not a myth, actually. It does happen. Not so much to prosecutors. I think perhaps other stakeholders have had more experiences than prosecutors, such as correctional services and maybe police. So it's not a far-fetched thing.
Yeah.
But you find that these guys know that you have nothing against them. You are coming here to work, and you are pursuing the evidence that's on the docket. So, in my experience, it has not been something that they hold against you.
Yeah.
But obviously, some are more dangerous than others, and so you are careful in how you deal with them.
Yeah.
And also, you are trying to be as safe as possible and not to expose too much of your personal details.
Sure.
But in general, it's a space I enjoy. Maybe for some people it might not be, and maybe there's different. So another thing is, as prosecutors, we go to court all the day. I mean, every day. And I mean, between today and tomorrow, I have a roll today, 10 cases on the roll. Tomorrow I have another 10 or 15 or 8. And court starts from 9 to 4. So when do you get to prepare for the next day? It's not that work.
Yeah.
The work is over.
Yeah.
And so you must take some of your time
Sure.
after hours to prepare for the next day. Because when court starts in the morning, you can't claim hours that since court finished at 4 yesterday, you're not ready today. You must be ready. So and there's no overtime in law. Even with the attorney's profession, even with the advocate's profession, there's no overtime.
Yeah.
You get a case, you must do what you need to do to be ready on trial date. And so it's one of those drawbacks. I indicated earlier that I thought law is one of those careers, 9 to 5, you're out, but it's really, it's 24/7. You just have to manage your business.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not an easy ride, that one.
Yeah.
If you were to look back now on your journey as a student and so on, and you are giving advice now to a youngster who is going through the journey of studying law, what advice would you give them to sort of fast track their way into qualifying to be an attorney or an advocate? Not an advocate, but a prosecutor rather.
You have to do well in criminal procedure, in criminal law, in the law of evidence, interpretation of statutes, as well as criminal civil procedure. And those modules are not the glamorous modules of the LLB. There's company laws, there's insolvency laws, contracts. There's many other areas of law which might be more appealing, labor laws and so on.
Yeah.
But you need to do well in those areas. And so my approach during my LLB, I did not have an idea exactly of what I wanted to become and what I wanted to do with my LLB. But my approach was to treat every module as important as possible, so that should the eventuality occur that I want to specialize in human rights, my marks are good in human rights. If I wanted to specialize in constitutional law or in some other area, I did not want to regret my marks in that area. So I took all the modules seriously. I did not think I would do criminal law. It was not glamorous to even to me as well. But I think criminal law found me. And so it's important to take all the modules seriously, because you don't know what opportunities will arise and where they will lead you, and it will be unfortunate
Right.
to have a passion for human rights law and want to pursue it, but your marks in that regard are poor, because when you apply to those institutions which specialize, they will look at your human rights law marks, and then they will find that you don't have a good understanding. And unfortunately, that's how organizations or employers interpret marks.
Yes.
If you had an unfortunate incident at that time, it will not be factored into that you were sick and
Yeah.
didn't attend classes, it will be assumed that you don't understand that area of the law.
Yeah.
So it's important to take the modules seriously.
Yes.
And what I'd always done also is try to look at job adverts of the different careers or practice areas. See what are the requirements for someone to practice in that area, and try to work myself towards that destination. And so when you look at, for example, job posts for attorneys, you will see that they want someone who has a license, they want someone who is conversant in this certain language, they want someone who's done maybe prior or has attended vacation work or job shadowing or did law clinic or practical experience. So I would use those things as markers for me to say, what do I need to do next in order to prime myself for appointment in whichever direction I pursue. And so I would advise people to look at the job posts, although they're not intending to apply immediately, to see what are the requirements. Because when the time to apply comes, you want to at least tick most of the boxes to stand a good chance, and not to find out that there's certain things that you have not done that are required, which might put you at a disadvantage.
We're wrapping up this interview now. This has been highly stimulating. I mean, I've learned so much about the profession of being a prosecutor. So are there additional insights that you can give us about the job of a prosecutor?
Yes, I think preparation is key for a prosecutor. You have to understand the dockets, the evidence, the case consultation. You have to be thoroughly prepared, and the disadvantage the prosecutor might have is a limitation of time, because you do court every day. Some of the cases you get the dockets today from the police to proceed tomorrow, and you might find that the accused person hired his lawyer 6 months ago, and so he has had the brief, he's fully prepared. But when you come to court at 9 o'clock, you can't excuse yourself that you didn't have enough time. I remember when I was in training, advocate, I forget his name, it escapes me, but he was an acting director of prosecutions in these divisions. He is now permanently appointed in Mpumalanga. He gave us this advice, and he said that you must prepare even if you sacrifice sleep. You will sleep after the case. And he said you can choose to sleep and then be unprepared, but some people, it will be their first impression of you, and it will last forever. And so prepare, go to court prepared, you will sleep later. And so preparation is very important, and sometimes you have to make that sacrifice to decide, are you going to sleep 8 hours, or you're going to cut your 8 hours in half in order to come prepared, because it is a bit unprofessional, and the complainant loses confidence when you say you're not ready with their case. The community is not sure. And so you have to be prepared as a professional, but also to inspire confidence in the victims and the witnesses, because some of the witnesses come to testify at the risk of their own lives when they return to society and live with the offenders. So they want to know that their evidence will be worthwhile and that it will lead to a positive outcome. If you come unprepared, they will have doubts, they will not attend court, and so you might have challenges. Preparation is key in law. I think that's what I can say.
Thank you. What edge do you think you had that gave you an advantage to be employed or as a prosecutor?
I don't think it was about me, really, because up to the exam point, that's on you. You pass the test, but you must still do the interview. At that stage, I really didn't have much of an experience in criminal law, but I prayed. I pray, and I think someone took a chance on me, and I later learned that the chief prosecutor made a case for my appointment in the deliberations of the panel. For whatever reason, I think he saw potential seriousness. I remember when I reported for the first day, they said, "Oh, yes, the serious one," because I wanted it so much.
Sure.
And in the interview, I think they could see the desire that I wanted it. I took it very seriously. I had prepared thoroughly, although I did not have a background experience, but they could see that this person is hungry. And then they took a chance on me, and I'm grateful for that. And I don't think it was by my own competencies. Of course, I had to show something to get to that point, but I think perhaps the panel gave me a chance, and I think and hope that it is paying off for them.
Well, thank you. I think that's very key advice for a young person. I mean, that people observe your energy, basically, and the seriousness in which you are taking the prospective role. So thank you very much for sharing that. And lastly, what advice would you give for those who are considering pursuing a life of crime?
I'll give you the cliche advice. Crime does not pay. And it is advice that is repeated by rehabilitated offenders. When they speak about their previous lives, some have spent 30 years in jail, life terms, and so on, in gangs and so on. They say crime does not pay, and they regret their involvement. Of course, it was due to a lot of socio-economic issues that they talk about, and family structures, but there's no glory in crime. Criminals, it is a dead end, because it's, in prison there's rehabilitative programs, but even then, people who come out with criminal records, it is difficult for employers in society to have a trust. Although they can see you did woodwork, you did electricity, you did sewing and so on, but they still have reservations, and so you carry that stigma, and it is even harder for them to, when I listen to some of the guys and they want to participate in certain programs to educate, it's even hard to get support because of the stigma. So crime does not pay. It is a dead end for life's progression. And in some cases, it really ends your life literally because of violence and shootouts and so on. So there's really no benefit to crime. It can be cool in a certain social grouping, but eventually it does not lead to anywhere. Someone considering that path must choose better friends and associate themselves with people who are more successful, that will lead them to better future for themselves than crime. It is not sustainable. It always ends in tears.
Well, you've heard it from the prosecutor himself. Don't do crime. Make sure you associate yourself with good company. Focus, work hard, and you should be able to fulfill your dreams. Simpiwe, thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
We appreciate it. Hopefully you've enjoyed that interview and you learned a lot from Simpiwe. If you have other professionals, or you are a professional yourself, an accountant, a doctor, a specialist, or in any field where you can give us some game on what it takes to make it in that profession, please reach out to me. I'd love to interview you. Or if you're a business owner and an entrepreneur, especially if you live within the Eastern Cape, please let's get in touch. I'd love to get your game so that we can help other people and ensure that youngsters can get to understand the options that are available so they can make a better life for themselves.